Okay, so real quick, um, this is just kind of me. So I recently got a Samsung A52, and that's basically what I used to get the footage for the last video that I did. But basically, I had spent the last day about trying to get it rooted because I noticed there were some permissions issues that I was having with the SD card and accessing information there. But one thing I ran into is third-party instructions, and they're not always that reliable. And I should have been more. I should have looked better at the official instructions for Magisk, because that's what I used to root my phone. It's finally rooted. I got it working. It's just the fact that I was being kind of stupid about it and following someone else's directions. So, and of course, you want to download it from the official place. Like, the GitHub is basically the official place you're going to get anything for Magisk if you're trying to root your phone. So, you get the latest APK, download it, install it. That's what you're going to use for a number of portions of the process. So it's kind of weird too, because in order to find the installation instructions, they do have the link here, but it's basically, you're going into the docs to look for it and all. It's a lot nicer in the docs folder. So we get in here, we can look at installation instructions, and so this is basically the same as that one. So what you'll download it, it'll tell you the information you need. You're pretty much following this process for the most part. You do need an unlocked bootloader. So luckily the A52, the developer options, let you OEM unlock the bootloader like right from the get-go if you open it, unlock it, which was a really nice and convenient thing because there are a lot of phones that don't do that. There are a couple other options they could have added to developer options that would have made it a lot nicer, but maybe down the road. So in my case, I had a Samsung device. There are a couple of them that have special directions, but this is basically the process in essence. So you unlock the bootloader. It kind of tells you how to do that. Let's see. Let's see, it tells you how to double check that, so you're going to make sure that it's grayed out so that VaultKeeper doesn't have you locked up still. That can take a second once you boot in and connect to internet, so you'll reboot it. You'll basically OEM unlock, reboot, and then you'll need to connect to the internet, and then, it'll take a second, but you'll notice that the OEM unlocks switch is missing. It'll take a second, but it'll pop back up, or it should. It did for me. So basically, you'll get the firmware. They recommend these ones. I used SamLoader to download my firmware. So there are various, you can find ways of finding it. It doesn't go into detail on how to do that here, but I believe some of these, I didn't look in detail, but some of these might have instructions on how to look for it. I kind of searched around and found the region codes. In my phone that I got was actually a Panamanian phone, so it's still US, but it started up in Spanish instead of English. That's really about the biggest difference. It still has NFC and all the other features that might be missing from other region phones from other countries. But you can download the firmware with any of these tools basically. And then you're extracting the firmware. So what's interesting here is in the first instructions I was following, you would basically extract all the components of the firmware out individually, and then you'd go into that AP tar that the instructions here mention and pull out the boot image, and then you'd like repackage it, and then you'd have Magisk patch it. That was a completely wrong way to do it. So here in Magisk's directions, it says to take that AP tar, that AP partition tar, and basically patch the whole thing with Magisk. What Magisk is going to do is it's going to take every component, the recovery boot and everything that it needs, and patch it all so that it can work properly. And then from there, it's going to repackage it up, and then you flash that with all the other portions of it together. So there were a lot of things missing from the other directions that I had come across. So you basically have the packaged AP file, and then you flash the BL, CP, and CSC, and you're basically factory resetting the phone, but it's with root this time. You do have to reinstall Magisk. That's a really important part. So you go to the GitHub again, you download the APK, you give permissions to install, and then you install the APK, or Magisk, and then you have to go into Magisk, and it'll do its thing. So what I was missing from the get-go is when I was flashing on the boot tar, it would give me the Magisk thing, but it wouldn't work because there were missing components in that AP partition that I didn't have because I didn't patch it correctly. But after that, when you get a firmware update, you do have to kind of go through kind of half the same process. Upgrading, you can preserve it, but so what's interesting is the firmware, when you download it, comes with two CSC partition files per se. One is for factory reset, and then there's a home CSC that basically will help preserve your data. So you're going to use that for upgrading. You do have to re-patch that AP partition every time you get a new firmware, but it should be pretty simple considering you're using these tools. So most people are going to have a US phone unless you're buying it from like eBay at a cheaper price like I did, in which case you're going to have to figure out and look at the firmware to figure out which one you're going to have to update to. And you're going to have to do that anyways, being as depending on if you're unlocked or if you have it locked in with your carrier, you do need to have the right region code or whatever for it, firmware code. And those are different for each cell phone carrier as well. Between, I think, each country has their own region code. And then in the US, Canada, and I believe Mexico, you have to look for the specific carrier code that you're going to use for that firmware that you're downloading. So like with SamLoader, for example, if they could open that correctly. So with SamLoader, you can see that that three-letter character is what you're going to put in for the region. Most of these tools are going to ask for that. All of these tools are going to ask for that, basically. So you're going to need that, and then you can get the latest firmware string and then plop it in wherever you need it here. But for the most part, it's a pretty simple get go op deal. So that's really all I did. Once I got that working, once I installed it properly, Magisk properly, it was able to reboot, follow up its process properly, and give me a phone that actually has root and lets me manage it that way. So I should be able to actually access my SD card, hopefully, with all my ROMs on it from RetroArch. But yeah, so whenever you get a new device and you decide you want to root it or something like that, make sure you follow the proper directions. Most modern projects nowadays have pretty decent instructions. I mean, Magisk was pretty detailed with it, so I really can't complain. They even go into like some of the like if then stuff, like for Samsung and a couple others. So it gives you a lot of options that way. But yeah, if you need to recover it or whatever, Magisk is also the root that should be more sly with like certain apps checking for root. We'll see how that goes depending on how it goes on later in the year for me. But yeah, rooted phone, follow the directions. Don't screw it up. I should leave a link to the Magisk repo in the description. So yeah, we'll work that out. I'll see you all in the next one and join all that other stuff. But yeah, and support links.